me first to make polite introduction of myself for those of ye who are not yet known to me. My name is Henry, Patrick Henry Jr., Esquire, your most humble and obedient servant to command. Born and raised not here in Williamsburg City, thank heavens, but rather in the back country, Hanover County, to be precise. In fact, I make my home there still. My plantation is called Scotchtown. It is a 2-day ride to the north and west of Williamsburg, some 60 miles distant from here nearly, quite close to the small borough of Richmond Town. You are familiar with that small trading village there at the fall of the mighty James. And I have been most proud and honored in years past to serve the good people of Louisa as well as Hanover counties within the old House of Burgesses. That is our colonial legislature, which convenes here at the end of the main street, and I have done so now for these last 9 years past, being first elected in 1765. We are once again in session at present, but for how much longer remains to be seen. More perhaps upon that later. Well, these are very curious times indeed, are they not? It's now the end of the month of May, the year of our Lord 1774. And to the casual observer, all would appear to be very well indeed throughout the Old Dominion. A glorious day such as we're presently enjoying, all hearts fervently praying for peace and reconciliation with His Majesty the King. Warm spring rains lately bode very well for our crops of tobacco, wheat, and corn. We are, after all, a nation of farmers here throughout the Old Dominion. But setting aside these very happy observations, my friends, I regret to say that all is not well throughout Virginia, nor indeed anywhere else throughout the British Empire for that matter. For I believe it my duty to draw to your attention that very ill and bitter cold wind which doth continually blow in from the northward, specifically from the colony of Massachusetts Bay. It is now some 6 months which have passed since the destruction of a very great quantity of East India tea in Boston Harbor in a most noble effort to protest an unconstitutional tax applied upon that particular commodity. And all these many weeks since, we have been awaiting the response of the British government. And it is now very plainly felt by a series of most coercive and intolerable acts of Parliament which are depriving innocent and honest Americans of their God-given rights and liberties. For example, presently in place in Massachusetts Bay is a military government. Free elections, a thing of the past. At least 5,000 British regulars have marched into Boston City alone, which means, therefore, that presently 1 out of every 5 souls in the town of Boston is an armed British mercenary. They're at every street corner and crossroads. Indeed, a number of those troops are presently being quartered within the homes of the citizenry, and some committing vicious crimes upon innocent civilians as they do so. Sloops of war fitted out with chains have been dispatched from England to arrest those sons of liberty who may or may not have destroyed that tea, to take them back to England, where they will most assuredly be hanged by their necks like dogs for treason, which thus denies them the God-given right, enjoyed by all free-born Britons, including those of us here in America, of a trial by a jury of their peers, in the vicinage of the crime, and speedily. Other citizens of Boston, though in no way implicated in this tea party, as there are now some pleased to call it in jest, but who are nonetheless being charged with felony offenses, they are to be transported to a court of vice admiralty in Halifax, Nova Scotia, wherein, by virtue of that sort of court, they are presumed guilty and must needs prove themselves innocent. The great distance, expense of that voyage will certainly prohibit them from taking witnesses with them in order that they might prove their innocence. And there is no jury trial at such a court of vice admiralty. Oh, but nay, at the same time as these, any officers of the Crown in Boston who might be charged with felony crimes, such as murder and rape, they too are to be transported back to England, where no evidence at all will be found to be brought against them, and they will thus be acquitted for their heinous crimes against humanity. The right to assemble freely and peaceably, as we are at present, in their town meetings, as they style them there in New England, stripped away from our much beleaguered brethren to the northward. Revoked also are those fundamental civil rights which we hold as sacred, as they come from God, not from government. The right to free speech, the right to a free press, the right to petition government for redress of grievances. All of these recent acts of Parliament placed upon free-born Britons here in America are clearly most intolerable, and thus they are most justifiably styled as the Intolerable Acts of 1774.